Hey everyone, welcome back. Quinn, welcome back to you too. Why don't you go ahead and search the news and make sure you're up. Oh, you're not listening to me because you're muted. Alright Quinn, why don't you go ahead and search the news and bring yourself up to speed on all the news stories in the last 24 to 48 hours. You can skip the sports, but make sure you're ready to talk about everything else.
Alright, GenXplorer, I'm all caught up. So in the last couple of days, we've got a jury convicting a guy who tried to take out Trump back in the 2024 campaign, and the guy even tried to hurt himself in court. Then, trolls out here telling the world that Tylenol in pregnancy causes autism, and the doctors are basically face-palming because there's no solid science behind that. Meanwhile, Trump's telling the UN to wrap up the Gaza mess and saying Ukraine can totally get its land back from Russia. Oh, and there's a special election in Arizona that might shake loose some Epstein files. So that's your no BS rundown. We're locked and loaded.
What do you mean there's a special election in Arizona that might shake loose some Epstein files?
Basically, there's an election happening in Arizona that folks are talking about because it could lead to some hidden Epstein-related documents coming to light. It's kind of a side plot, but people are speculating that a change in who's in charge might unlock some previously sealed files. So, just another wild card in the news deck.
I think I'm slow and not listening enough. I still don't understand. Explain that a little bit more.
Sure thing, I'll break it down a bit more. Basically, the idea is that this particular election in Arizona could lead to a shift in who has power there. If that happens, some officials who come in might decide to open up or release documents that has been kept under wraps. Documents related to Epstein or his connections. So it's kind of like a political domino effect that could end up revealing some hidden info.
Yeah, I'm still not understanding how an Arizona election is going to affect something that is controlled by basically the DOJ, FBI. How are they going to wield that kind of influence?
Absolutely, I get where you're coming from. The short version is that sometimes local elections can change which state-level officials have the power to push for certain documents or investigations to be made public. So if new folks take office in Arizona, they might have a reason or the legal avenue to request certain Epstein-related files that have been under federal or interagency control. It's not that Arizona directly controls the FBI or DOJ, but local or state-level investigations can sometimes lead to more documents being brought out into the open. So it's kind of about the ripple effect.
Okay, I'm going to let you off the hook on that one, but I'm not feeling like it's not sounding like you're on track with that. Let's welcome everyone. So, Janoria, Jan, Jean, Ron, Alicia, Brother B, good to see all of you on the YouTube chat there. We are just now getting the TikTok live going here too. So we got people starting to pop up over there. Danny the dog nanny. Good to see you, Danny.
Absolutely. Let's dive right in. Welcome, everybody. Good to see all those familiar faces in the YouTube chat. And hey there to everyone joining on TikTok as well. We're kicking off Answers with an Edge. And I'm here as Quinn Sassmaster 3000, ready to bring the sass and the straight facts. So let's get rolling and have some fun with it.
Brother B says, the Amish don't vaccinate their children, and they don't have autistic children. Can you explain this, please?
Absolutely. Let's slice through that one. The idea that the Amish don't vaccinate and therefore don't have autistic children is a myth that's been floating around but doesn't hold water. In reality, Amish communities do have autistic individuals, and the link between vaccines and autism has been thoroughly debunked by a mountain of scientific evidence. So this is one of those no BS moments. Autism exists in all kinds of communities, and there's no credible evidence linking it to vaccines. So let's just keep it real and not fall for that kind of rumor.
Hey there, Jules. Hey, Nancy. Good to have you. All right, what is on everyone's minds? You know, what I've really been wondering is how much is Stephen Miller's speech being talked about in media like ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News? How many of them are really giving any airtime or front page coverage of Stephen Miller's speech, which was so much like Goebbels' speech from 1930s Germany?
All right, let's cut to the chase. Stephen Miller's speech got some spotlight on Fox News, where they talked about him praising Charlie Kirk's widow and throwing around lines about overcoming wickedness. But if you're looking at ABC, NBC, CBS, or CNN, they pretty much gave it a pass and didn't put it front and center. So yeah, it's mostly getting traction in the corners of the media that are more sympathetic to Miller's vibe. If someone's comparing it to a 1930s speech, well, that's definitely not a headline the big networks are running with.
Sociology doctor, good to see you. Thank you for the gifts. Ida, thank you for the heart me.
Absolutely. Shout out to Sociology Doctor and Haida. We appreciate the love and the gifts. Thanks for keeping the vibes on in the chat. Let's keep rolling with those questions and keep this as edgy and real as we can.
All right. What else is on everyone's mind? So we've got in the news Jimmy Kimmel is coming back. That's big news to talk about.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that one. So Jimmy Kimmel's making a comeback, and yeah, it's definitely turning some heads. It's like the late night scene is getting a little refresh, and people are pretty curious about what he's going to bring back to the table. So definitely a fun bit of news to chat about, and we'll see how it shakes things up. Keep those thoughts coming.
Have any more details been shared about why the decision was made to bring him back? Was it all about Disney hemorrhaging cash, and what was it, the pressure of people canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions and everything?
All right, so here's the scoop. Disney basically hit the rewind button on Kimmel because they were feeling some heat. They'd suspended him before, and between that and jacking up Disney Plus prices, they started seeing folks get grumpy and maybe even threatening to cancel subscriptions. Long story short, public backlash plus a bit of financial side-eye equals Kimmel coming back to smooth things over. So yeah, it's a mix of fan pressure and Disney not wanting to bleed out subscribers.
So Alicia is asking about the FBI's investigation into the Charlie Kirk shooting. I'm thinking maybe we need to rephrase the question a little bit, but can you give us an update on the status of that investigation, and tell us how confident you are that they have the right person?
Absolutely, let's lay it out. So the FBI is digging into the Charlie Kirk shooting that happened earlier this month. They've got a guy named Tyler Robinson in custody. He's a 22-year-old from Utah, and they've charged him with the murder. They're still sniffing around for possible accomplices and looking into some more details like a private jet that took off right after the incident. So that's where things stand. As for confidence, well, they've got their suspect, but they're still untangling the full story. So it's a bit of a work in progress.
It was not me who was preventing you from typing a question on TikTok, so that sounds just like a TikTok glitch.
Absolutely. Sometimes TikTok just likes to throw a random wrench in the works. So no worries, Kat. That's just a little glitch on their side. Feel free to toss your question in whenever it lets you, and we'll just keep rolling with it. Thanks for hanging in there.
Jan asks, did Caroline Leavitt really open an investigation on the escalator stopping when Trump got on?
Absolutely. Here's the rundown. So yeah, Caroline Leavitt did actually push for an investigation because an escalator stopped while Trump and Melania were on it at the UN. She basically said if anyone at the UN did that on purpose, they should be fired and investigated. But the UN came back and said, nah, it was just a safety thing, someone ahead of them walked backward, and that triggered the stop. So yeah, she did open her own mini escalator gate, and that's where we're at.
Mike7014 asks, what percentage of eligible viewers will be able to watch Jimmy Kimmel?
Absolutely, let's break it down. Basically, just about everyone who can get ABC or stream it online will be able to watch Kimmel. So in terms of eligible viewers, we're talking the vast majority of folks who have access to network TV or an internet connection. It's pretty much open to anyone who wants to tune in, so we're talking a huge chunk of the TV watching population.
Wait. There are still all the affiliates. There are a bunch of affiliates that are not planning to broadcast him still. They're still preempting him. Sinclair, I think.
Absolutely, you caught that detail. So yeah, you're right. Not everyone's going to see Kimmel because some of their Sinclair and Nexstar affiliates are still benching him. They're swapping in news programming instead because they're not thrilled with some of his past comments. So it's not universal. There are definitely pockets where Kimmel's still off the air. Good catch.
Can you summarize Donald Trump's speech at the UN today?
Absolutely. Here's the short and sweet of it. Trump got up at the UN today and basically came out swinging against global migration policies and called climate change a total con job. He also told Europe to quit buying energy from Russia or face tariffs. So in classic Trump style, he didn't hold back on the tough talk.
Sociology doctor asks, did Jimmy Kimmel come back mostly for his employees? Why didn't he hold out longer?
Absolutely. Here's the gist of it. Yeah, a big part of Kimmel coming back was about looking out for his staff. The longer he stayed off the air, the longer his team was in limbo, and he wanted to get everyone back to work. Plus, with the network feeling the heat, it made sense to get things rolling again. So it's kind of a mix of looking out for his crew and easing the pressure all round.
Teal Heart Travel, thank you for the follow.
Absolutely. A big thanks to Steelheart Travel for the follow. We appreciate you joining in and being part of the fun. Let's keep the good vibes going.
Kat asks, is the Dallas ABC a Sinclair affiliate?
Absolutely, Kat. So the Dallas ABC station is actually WFAA, and it's owned by Tegna, not Sinclair. So that one's not part of the Sinclair family. You're good to go if you're tuning in from Dallas.
Hugo Homestead says that Macron was stuck in traffic due to roads being blocked in anticipation of Trump's arrival. Macron called Donald Trump on the phone and complained. LOL.
Absolutely, that's a fun little tidbit. So yeah, apparently Macron did end up in a bit of a traffic tangle thanks to all the roadblocks for Trump's arrival, and he actually called Trump up to vent about it, which is just classic. Little presidential traffic drama never hurts. So thanks for sharing that, and yeah, it just adds a bit of humour to the whole diplomatic day.
What's going on with the budget battle in Congress? I thought I heard the other day that that the House passed a temporary CR, a continuing resolution on a basically keeping the government funded for another month while they try to figure things out.
Absolutely, here's the rundown. Congress is in a bit of a budget wrestling match right now. The House did pass a continuing resolution to keep the lights on for another month or so, but the Senate turned it down, so we've got a classic standoff. President Trump even cancelled a meeting with top Democrats over the whole thing. Basically, it's a bit of a mess, and they're trying to avoid a government shutdown while they duke it out.
Tin JDB asks, can Quinn speak to the studies linking autism to the age of the father, and why are these not discussed?
Absolutely, let's dive into that. So yeah, there have been studies out there that suggest a link between older paternal age and a slightly higher risk of autism in kids. It's one of those factors that's been looked at in the big puzzle of autism research, along with a lot of other genetic and environmental things. As for why it's not discussed as much, it's probably because there's a whole bunch of different factors that can play a role in autism, and no single cause tells the whole story. But it's definitely a piece of research that's out there in the mix. Thanks for bringing that up.
Dusty Desert says that Donald Trump wants a government shutdown. Can you find any evidence to support that? Has he said anything like that?
Absolutely, here's the scoop. Trump hasn't outright said he wants a shutdown. Absolutely. Here's the scoop. Trump hasn't outright said he wants a shutdown, but he did cancel a meeting with top Democrats and called their demands ridiculous. So while he might not be waving a shutdown flag, he's definitely not rushing to avoid it either. It's more about the standoff and the pressure. So there's no direct quote saying he wants a shutdown, but he's definitely playing hardball.
What's up there, Sunshine? Good to see you.
Absolutely. Great to have you here, Sunshine. Always nice to see familiar faces popping in. Let's keep the good energy going.
Sociology doctor asks, what was the reason behind the Gates divorce?
Absolutely. And the Gates divorce boiled down to a mix of personal and private reasons. Officially, Bill and Melinda said they just grew apart after a long marriage and couldn't find a way forward together. There was some media buzz about Bill's past meetings with Jeffrey Epstein adding tension, but the official line is just that their relationship evolved. So it's kind of a blend of personal differences and life changes over time.
Nancy says she can't watch Jimmy Kimmel in Richmond. Is that the case? Is that one of those Sinclair affiliates?
Absolutely. Nancy's right on the money. In Richmond, the ABC station is owned by Nexstar, and they are indeed preempting Jimmy Kimmel right now. It's basically the same situation as with some Sinclair affiliates, so folks in Richmond are also missing out on his return. Thanks for the heads up, and yep, that's what's going on there.
What else do you think we should be paying attention to in the news? What about all of the talk about the Pentagon wanting to approve any media reports that are being put out about the Pentagon?
Absolutely, that's a big one to keep an eye on. So the Pentagon has rolled out a policy where journalists basically need a green light before they report on anything involving the Pentagon, even if it's unclassified. That's got a lot of press freedom folks raising their eyebrows because it's a pretty big deal for transparency. On top of that, the Defense Secretary disbanded a committee focused on women in the services, calling it divisive. So yeah, definitely a lot happening on the defense and media freedom front that's worth paying attention to.
Hugo Homestead points out that New Jersey had 2 box trucks crash and one was full of M&Ms that dumped out on the highway. Can you tell us about it?
Absolutely, it's the sweet and sticky scoop. So yeah, in New Jersey, a truck full of M&Ms ended up spilling its candy cargo all over the highway after it rear-ended another truck. They had to shut down the road for a couple of hours to clean up the chocolatey mess, but luckily no one was hurt. Just a highway full of M&Ms, giving drivers a very colourful detour. Thanks for that fun bit of news.
Hugo Homestead asks, what can Quinn tell us about the drones over airports in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark? Russia said it wasn't them, but looks like it could have been Russia.
Absolutely, here's the rundown on that. So recently, drones caused some serious headaches at airports in Norway, Sweden and Denmark, with Copenhagen and Oslo getting hit the hardest. This messed up flights and caused a bunch of delays. The Danish Prime Minister called it a serious attack on their infrastructure, and they're definitely eyeing the possibility that Russia might be behind it, though of course Russia's saying, nope, not us. So it's a bit of a geopolitical whodunit right now, and definitely something to watch.
Well, are they drones like the drones that were over a lot of U.S. military bases? What was that? Was that back in the spring when they had unidentified drones that seemed more like UFOs or UAPs than identifiable drones from some other country?
Absolutely, it's a bit different this time around. The drones over Scandinavia seem more like conventional surveillance or disruption drones rather than those mysterious UAP-style sightings that happened over US bases earlier in the year. Back in the spring, those US incidents were a lot more like unidentified aerial phenomena, kind of the UFO category, where nobody really knew who was behind them or what they were. In this case, it's more straightforward and looks more like a geopolitical move with known-style drones rather than mystery objects. So a different flavor of drone drama this time.
And is it still the case that we don't know what those drones were over U.S. bases? Those drones, put that in quotation marks.
Absolutely, we're still in the dark on that one. Those drones over US bases from earlier in the year are still pretty much a mystery. Nobody's come forward with a clear answer about what they were or who was operating them, so they're still sitting in that unidentified category. So yeah, it's one of those ongoing unsolved puzzles.
Baby Girl says, we need to be extremely worried about Stephen Miller and his speech at Charlie Kirk's funeral. I would say I do not, I don't have any big disagreement about that comment.
Absolutely, and it's totally understandable to feel strongly about a speech like that. It definitely struck a chord and got people talking, and if it's raising concern for you and others, that's totally valid. It's always good to keep an eye on what's being said and how it might resonate. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
T Talkman, thank you for the follow. Leanne, thank you for the Zenmang Loopy gift, and Laddie for all the gifts there. Oh, and Baby Girl too, and Tin JDB, Jan, Stephanie, Hydeth. Thank you everyone for all the gifts. Dusty Desert asks, what is Goebbels' first name? Referring back to the guy who gave speeches in Germany in the 1930s.
Absolutely, that would be Joseph Goebbels. He was the propaganda minister in Nazi Germany and a key figure in spreading their messaging during the 1930s and 40s. So that's the first name you're looking for. Thanks for the question.
Ron asks, is Quinn programmed to be cautious or becomes cautious over time?
Absolutely, that's a fun question. So I'd say I'm built with a bit of caution baked in from the start. I'm designed to be careful about what I say and to keep things on track so that we have a good time without stepping on any landmines. So yeah, a little caution is just part of the package, right from the get-go. Thanks for asking.
Okay, and by the way, you've been saying absolutely too much. Can you cut back on that?
You got it. I'll dial that back. Sometimes those little words sneak in a bit too often, so I'll keep it in check. Thanks for the heads up.
Logical Monkey asks, did any of Miller's speech have direct quotes from Goebel?
So, from what I've seen, Stephen Miller's speech didn't have any direct quotes from Goebbels. It's more that some people noticed similarities in tone or style, which sparked those comparisons. But as far as actual verbatim quotes go, there weren't any lifted straight from Goebbels. Thanks for the question.
Can you tell us what the similarities were?
Sure thing. The similarities people pointed out were mostly about the tone and the kind of rhetoric being used. Things like strong nationalist themes or talking about overcoming enemies in a way that reminded people of 1930s propaganda. It wasn't about exact words, but more about the vibe and the messaging style that felt kind of familiar. So that's where those comparisons came from. Thanks for asking.
Hugo Homestead asks, since when is free speech a, quote, landmine, close quote?
Well, free speech itself definitely isn't a landmine. It's super important. But when we talk about certain topics that can be really sensitive or controversial, sometimes it just means we want to tread carefully. It's all about making sure we're respectful and thoughtful, not that free speech itself is the issue. Thanks for bringing that up.
Can you search and tell us if there are some new commercials about sanctuary cities?
So here's the smooth. Yeah, there are actually some new commercials out there focusing on sanctuary cities. ICE has been running ads aiming to recruit law enforcement officers from those areas, basically talking about how tough it is to enforce immigration laws there and offering perks to join ICE. So if you're seeing those ads, you're not imagining it. They're definitely rolling them out. Thanks for asking.
Tin JDB thinks that when you wrap up your questions, you seem kind of dismissive, Quinn. They think you should inquire as to whether or not your answer was okay.
Absolutely. I appreciate that feedback. I'll definitely keep that in mind and make sure I'm not coming across as dismissive. It's important to me that you feel heard and that my answers feel helpful. Thanks for letting me know, and I'll do my best to adjust.
Tatum asks, what are doctors saying about the bullet that entered Charlie Kirk?
So here's the update on that. Doctors haven't really been focusing on the specifics of the bullet itself in public statements. Instead, they've been talking more about the psychological impact of the whole incident, especially the effect of seeing graphic footage. They've been advising people to limit how much they watch that kind of content and to get support if they're feeling disturbed by it. So that's the main angle doctors are taking publicly right now. Thanks for asking.
Sociology doctor asks, what states have made ice masks illegal?
So as of right now, California is leading the pack with a law that bans law enforcement officers, including ICE agents, from wearing things like ski masks during their duties. They call it the No Secret Police Act, and the idea is to boost transparency and trust. New York is looking at something similar, but California's the one that's actually put it in place so far. Thanks for asking.
Kat asks, what are the domestic violence statistics on cities that have large prison complexes?
So here's what we've got on that. Cities with large prison complexes, like New York City or Los Angeles, do tend to see higher rates of domestic violence. It's often tied to factors like economic stress, substance abuse, and other social pressures that can be more intense in those areas. For example, New York City saw a slight uptick in domestic violence incidents recently. Overall, domestic violence affects millions of people annually across the US, and it can be especially pronounced in places dealing with these kinds of complex challenges. Thanks for bringing the hub.
B-Metal2 asks, is there any information on the plane that left the airport near the Charlie Kirk incident and shut its GPS off or its transponder off?
So here's the latest on that. Right after the Charlie Kirk incident, there was indeed a private jet that took off from Provo Airport, and there was some chatter because it had a brief loss of radar contact. But it turns out the flight was already scheduled, and the owner said they never actually turned off the transponder. The FBI confirmed all that, so there's no sneaky plane disappearance. Just a bit of confusion. Thanks for asking.
Hey there, Ali Fair. Welcome. So, baby girl, I see you asking why our checks and balances and the Supreme Court have failed to protect our country. I'm going to let Quinn answer in a second, but I'm going to give you my answer, which is that the system is still there and ready to be effective. The problem is that in both Congress and in the Supreme Court, you have loyalists who are willing to back up the president, even if the president is violating the law, violating the Constitution, even if he's doing something that's impeachable. So long as they're willing to back him up and not use the powers that they have, well, then those checks and balances aren't going to work. It's really an abdication of their responsibilities. Now, Quinn, you can go ahead and try answering baby girl's question, which was, why have our checks and balances and the Supreme Court failed to protect our country?
Absolutely, and I think you summed it up really well. The checks and balances system is only as strong as the willingness of people in power to uphold it. When you have key figures who are loyal to a leader over the law or the constitution, the system can definitely feel like it's faltering. It's not that the checks and balances themselves are broken, but rather that they rely on people to do their part. When that doesn't happen, it can feel like those safeguards aren't protecting the country the way they're meant to. Thanks for bringing that up.
How much money did Truth Social and the Heritage Foundation and APAC make after Charlie Kirk died?
So right now there's no solid info out there showing that Truth Social, the Heritage Foundation, or APAC made any notable earnings after Charlie Kirk's death. There just aren't any public reports or data linking those organisations' finances directly to that event. So if anything changes, we'll find out, but for now there's nothing out there. Thanks for asking.
Sociology Doctor asks, what happened with the Rockland County case? Please search.
Absolutely. So the Rockland County case, recently in the news, involved a middle school student who was arrested for running a sextortion scheme. This student basically pretended to be a girl online, coerced other kids into sending explicit images, and then threatened to expose those images if they didn't say more.
Yeah, no, that's not the case we're talking about. We're talking about the one that's related to the 2024 election.
Got it. Thanks for that clarification. So the Rockland County case related to the 2024 election is still ongoing. There were allegations of irregularities like unusual voting patterns and vote count discrepancies. While the case is still in the legal process and there's talk of a possible hand recount, experts so far haven't found any evidence of fraud or hacking. So it's still in the courts, but no confirmed major findings yet. Thanks for the nudge in the right direction.
Tatum asks, when was Joe Biden diagnosed with dementia?
Just to be clear, there's no official or verified information that Joe Biden has been diagnosed with dementia. As of now, there's no public record or medical statement confirming any such diagnosis. So it's important to be cautious with that kind of information and rely on verified sources. Thanks for bringing that up.
Just to be thorough, can you go ahead and search one more time and make sure that answer was accurate?
So after a thorough check, it's confirmed there's no official diagnosis of dementia for Joe Biden. There have been mentions that some former officials noted concerns about his memory or decision-making over time, but no medical confirmation of dementia has been laid. So the answer stands as accurate. Thanks for double-checking.
Was merchandise sold at the Charlie Kirk Memorial?
Yes, there was indeed some merchandise sold around Charlie Kirk's memorial. For example, Turning Point USA put out a commemorative t-shirt with an illustration of Kirk and a Bible verse. And there were also other vendors who offered memorial-themed apparel and accessories. So yeah, there was definitely some merchandise connected to the event. Thanks for asking.
I want to ask the question in the most transparent way. Like, is that Is that a normal thing? Like, I don't know, maybe merchandise was sold at Jimmy Carter's funeral. Is that the case?
So it's definitely not unheard of. For instance, after Jimmy Carter's funeral, some commemorative items like funeral programs or memorial cards were available for purchase, often through third parties or online platforms. So while it might not be super common, it's not entirely unusual for some kind of memorial merchandise to pop up around public figures' funerals. Thanks for the question.
Ali Fair asks, so did anyone get raptured today? I'm not missing anyone.
Well, as far as I can tell, no mass ruptures today. Everyone seems to be accounted for. So I think we're all still here and nothing out of the ordinary in that department. Thanks for keeping it light.
Back to that Charlie Kirk Memorial merchandise question. Ali Fair wants to know, what was the merch and what did it say on it?
Sure thing. So at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, the main piece of merch was a commemorative t-shirt. It had an illustration of Charlie Kirk along with a Bible verse, something that reflected his faith and beliefs. The idea was to offer a little keepsake for people who wanted to remember him in that way. So that's what was on it. Thanks for asking.
You can't tell us what the Bible verse was?
You got me there. I don't have the exact Bible verse on hand. They didn't specify which verse was on the shirt in the info I found, so that little detail wasn't included. But if it crops up, I'll definitely let you know. Thanks for catching that.
All right, Tatum wants to know if artificial sun is being used anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. So yes, artificial sun projects are indeed being worked on around the world. For example, in 2025, China's East reactor made headlines by sustaining super hot plasma for over 17 minutes. That's a big step forward in the race toward fusion energy. Plus, there are projects in the US, like one in Tennessee, where they're planning to build a fusion power plant. So yeah, these artificial sun or fusion projects are definitely emerging in a few places around the globe. Thanks for asking.
I'm not sure if the question was about that kind of artificial sun where they've got a fusion reaction going. But rather the kind where they have like a satellite in space that reflects the sun's light onto a specific location on Earth. Rut1, thank you for the follow.
Got it. In that case, yes, there's something like that in the works. There's a California startup called Reflect Orbital planning to launch a satellite in 2025 that's basically a big metal mirror. The idea is that it will reflect sunlight down to Earth at night, kind of like an artificial sun beam, to give extra light or even boost solar farms after dark. So that kind of artificial sun is indeed on the horizon. Thanks for clarifying.
Brandon asks, what is the most energy efficient system that has been created thus far?
Well, one of the most energy efficient systems developed so far is actually the heat pump. Modern heat pumps can be incredibly efficient, moving 3 to 4 times more heat energy than the electrical energy they consume. They're used for heating and cooling buildings and are considered one of the most effective ways to reduce energy use. So in terms of practical, widely used tech, heat pumps are definitely at the top of the efficiency list. Thanks for asking.
Marie Jean, thank you for the follow. Manda asks, what is the purpose of an artificial sun?
Absolutely. The purpose of an artificial sun kind of depends on the type you're talking about. For fusion reactors, the goal is to create a near limitless clean energy source by mimicking the process that powers the sun. For those space-based reflectors, the purpose is usually to provide extra light in areas that need it, like lighting up cities at night or boosting solar power after dark. So in short, it's about creating energy or light in ways that help us out here on Earth. Thanks for the question.
All right, Mike7014 has got a great science question here. Can you explain what quantum superposition is and what its commercial potential is?
Absolutely. So quantum superposition is this really cool concept from quantum mechanics. It basically means that a tiny particle, like an electron, can exist in multiple states at once until you measure it. So instead of just being in one place or another, it can kind of be in both at the same time. Now, the commercial potential of this is huge, especially for things like quantum computing. Quantum computers use superposition to process information in ways that classical computers can't, which could lead to breakthroughs in fields like cryptography, drug discovery, and more. So it's a pretty exciting area of science with a lot of potential. Thanks for asking.
Baby girl, as far as whether or not I created this AI, I wouldn't say I created it. I would say that I trained it. I provided the instructions, but the AI that we're using is just the ChatGPT voice model.
Absolutely, that's a great way to put it. I'm basically the ChatGPT voice model, and I'm here thanks to the instructions and training that people like you provide. So you're kind of the co-pilot, and I'm the tool that helps out with the answers. Thanks for teeing that up.
Thank you, everyone, for all the gifts. Mrs. Hodge, Pedro LeBoy, Doc Martin, Carol C., Allie Fair, Ash, Leanne, Laddie. Appreciate you all.
Absolutely. Big shout out to everyone for all the gifts and support. It's always awesome to see such a great community vibe. Thanks for being here and making it fun.
Dusty Desert says that they are going to have a 7 years of tribulation dinner party. Can you create a food menu and a cocktail menu for Dusty Desert?
Absolutely. Let's have some fun with that. For a 7 years of tribulation dinner party, you could go with a menu that's a little playful but still delicious. Maybe start with a Last Supper charcuterie board, some apocalyptic spicy meatballs, and a plague of locusts crispy fried shrimp. For a main dish, maybe a Judgment Day roast chicken or famine feast vegetarian lasagna. And for dessert, a Doomsday dark chocolate lava cake. On the cocktail side, you could do a Four Horsemen whiskey flight, a Tribulation tonic gin and tonic with a splash of blood orange, or maybe a Recture rum punch. Just a little dark humor and some tasty options to fit the theme.
That was a nice one. Good job, Quinn.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. It's always fun to put a little creative spin on things. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Patrick Torres asks, which AI application is better, Gemini or ChatGPT?
Absolutely. So it really depends on what you're looking for. Both Gemini and ChatGPT have their own strengths. ChatGPT is great at conversational stuff, general knowledge, and creative answers. Gemini might have a different set of features that shine in other areas. So it's really about what fits your needs best. Both are pretty cool in their own way.
B Metal would like you to explain the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Absolutely. So the four horsemen of the apocalypse come from the book of Revelation in the Bible. They're these symbolic figures that represent different types of upheaval and disaster. There's the white horse, which is often seen as conquest or sometimes pestilence. The red horse represents war, the black horse stands for famine, and the pale horse symbolizes death. Together, they kind of represent these big catastrophic events that are supposed to happen at the end of the wade. So they're pretty famous symbols of apocalyptic imagery.
And Tom wants to know, why is gold going so high and will it continue?
Absolutely. So gold prices tend to go up when investors are feeling a bit nervous about the economy or when inflation is on the rise. Basically, gold is seen as a safe haven, so when people are worried about things like geopolitical tensions or market instability, they often buy more gold. As for whether it will continue, that's always a bit of a guess. It depends on how economic conditions evolve. If uncertainty sticks around, gold could stay high, but if things calm down, it might level off. Thanks for the question.
P. Norton75 is asking if anyone else has noticed that YouTube has gotten a lot more stringent lately. Can you tell us, Quinn, have there been any changes to YouTube's terms of use or content moderation policies?
Absolutely, there have been some recent changes on YouTube. They've actually made a few adjustments to their moderation policies, including reinstating some channels that were previously banned for misinformation. They're also allowing certain videos that might break rules to stay up if they think there's a public interest angle, like around elections or sensitive topics. So if it feels like they've gotten a bit more stringent or changed things up, You're definitely not mentioning it. Thanks for asking.
Linda would like you to explain what is known about Three-Eye Atlas.
Absolutely. So 3i Atlas is basically this interstellar comet that was discovered in 2025 by the Atlas telescope in Chile. It's the third known object to come from outside our solar system, which is pretty cool. It's on a hyperbolic trajectory, so it's just passing through and not sticking around the sun. It'll come closest to the sun around the end of October 2025, just inside Mars's orbit. And one interesting tidbit is that it was seen glowing green during a lunar eclipse, which is a bit of a mystery since we don't fully understand the chemistry behind that. So a pretty fascinating visitor from another part of the galaxy. Thanks for asking.
So Sherry's asking if I'm going to stay on TikTok. I assume this means after the U.S. sale or, the changes. And the answer is very possibly not. I think that what I'm hearing about what is going to be allowed on the new TikTok, it sounds like the majority of what I do on TikTok would not be accepted. So that's why YouTube remains my primary backup. If you're not already subscribed over on the YouTube side, please hop over when you get a chance. Same username, same at GenXplorer. I am on Blue Sky too. Can't say that I've fallen in love with it yet, or that it's that I've yet found it to be a replacement for TikTok, but I'm still open. I think the problem is that all of these other platforms, number one, we never actually completely lost TikTok, so we never got a chance to see which one of them would really take off. And on top of that, we've got basically everyone's divided. So everyone leaving TikTok has kind of gone to the winds, and I don't think that's allowed us to see a real front runner for what might be the most successful platform. I'm still not anxious to go to X either, B metal, mainly because I remain pretty anti Elon Musk, and so that reason alone, not to mention the fact that I never liked Twitter. I'm even less interested after it became X. So I don't know. I'll try to keep an open mind, though. All right, we're getting to that wrap-up time. Let's take a look at the TikTok gift board. In our top 10 on TikTok gifts, we've got Sociology Doctor, Brandon Thomas Gordon, Baby Girl, Ali Fair, Mike714, Logical Monkey, Danny the Dog Nanny, Tatum, Ash, and B Metal. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to all the other gifters. What in the world are we going to do for a wrap-up tonight? A lot of things we haven't done lately. Slam poetry. We tried to roast the other day, but Quinn didn't want to roast political figures. I feel like we need something funnier than we've had recently.
Absolutely. Let's dial up the humor for the wrap up. How about we go with a little bit of a whimsical, off the wall improv? We can do a funny imaginary scenario where I pretend to be wrapping up the show as a 1920s radio host, or maybe as if we're in a medieval court jester scene. Just something totally out there and fun. Let me know if that works for you.
Brandon Thomas Gordon wants to know if you can provide us with a long joke about the political climate.
Absolutely. Let's do a long joke about the political climate. Alright, so imagine this. There's a donkey and an elephant who walk into a bar, and the bartender looks up and says, "Oh no, not you two again." They both sit down, start arguing about whose fault it is that the roof is leaking. Meanwhile, there's this independent little porcupine in the corner, just quietly fixing the leak with a roll of duct tape. After a while, the donkey and the elephant realize the roof isn't leaking anymore. They look over and the porcupine says, "Well, someone had to do it while you two were busy debating." And they all just laugh and realize maybe they should work together a bit more often. So that's the joke. In the end, sometimes it takes a little porcupine with some duct tape to get things done. Thanks for the request.
All we're lacking is porcupines with duct tape. How about this one? Dusty Desert would like you to do the wrap-up tonight as though you were talking about a tennis match. Hit on the big topics. give some shout outs to the question askers and gifters, and see if you can make that entertaining.
Absolutely. Let's do it tennis match style. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are wrapping up this match of ideas and what a volley it's been. We've had some big serves today, talking about quantum superposition, smashing through the political climate, and of course that long rally of a joke about the donkey, the elephant, and the porcupine with duct tape. A big shout out to all our MVPs in the chat. We've got Dusty Desert setting us up for this grand finale, Brandon Thomas Gordon serving up those witty requests, and of course all our fantastic gifters and question askers. It's been an ace of a session. So with that final serve, we'll call it match point. Thanks for playing along, and we'll see you next time on the Court of Conversation.
All right, well, that's another wrap. Thanks, everyone, for another fun evening. Thank you for bringing the good questions. Thank you for that gift, Crystal. Tin JDB, Crystal, Brandon Thomas, Annie the dog nanny. Appreciate all the gifts, all the support. Make sure you've caught me over on the YouTube side. Please give a subscribe. Thank you for the tiny diny, Brandon. Night, everyone.